After 10 years of experiment, television, first shown to the public at the World's Fair, now takes its place as a new American art and industry. With the inauguration of regular television broadcast from NBC, one of the RCA services, set owners in metropolitan New York enjoy the novel experience of receiving pictures through the air. But an examination of the set contributes little to an understanding of the subject. Except for the screen and slanted mirror that reflects the image to the audience, it is much like a radio in appearance. But in the RCA Victor laboratories, where television equipment has been developed, we get a better view of the tubes that have added two new words to our vocabularies: the iconoscope for the camera and the kinescope for the receiver. The iconoscope is mounted behind the lens in this crude laboratory camera. The lens focuses the image of the experimental chart upon a metal plate in the tubes, and the iconoscope turns the image into electricity. In a nearby laboratory receiver, the kinescope tube is inserted. This tube receives the electrical impulses created in the iconoscope tube and recreates the image. As the tube is turned on, we see the pattern of the scanning beam of electrons that moves back and forth across its face over 13,000 times a second and carries the electrical impulses that create the picture. In the laboratory, the iconoscope and kinescope are connected by wire. But in actual broadcast, the NBC television transmitter atop the Empire State Building sends the program out from this antenna by imposing it on a very short radio wave, which acts as a carrier for both the picture and sound. But in actual broadcast, the NBC television transmitter atop the Empire State Building sends the program out from this antenna by imposing it on a very short radio wave, which acts as a carrier for both the picture and sound. These short radio waves travel only in a straight line and cannot follow the Earth's surface. Therefore, the limit of television is the distance from the antenna to the horizon. From the Empire State Building, a program can be sent only as far as the eye can see on a perfectly clear day. In New York, programs are sent to the transmitter over a special cable from the television studios in Radio City, 3/4 of a mile away, or are sent by radio to the transmitter by the mobile units, which cover sporting events, outdoor celebrations, and spot news of all kinds. A mobile television unit consists of two large struts. One of these is a rolling control room and amplifier, and the other is a small radio transmitter which sends the program over the air to the main transmitter in the Empire State Building. A radio transmitter which sends the program over the air to the main transmitter in the Empire State Building. Typical of programs covered by the mobile television units is a horse race, and this unit pulls into the racetrack early in the morning to start the elaborate preparations of setting up to cover the race. In the rear of one truck are reels of the special coaxial cable that carries the picture from the camera to the trucks. While this is dragged out, engineers raise the antenna on top of the truck from which the program will be broadcast, and the cameramen set up the portable iconoscope camera atop the grandstand.
Stand by for the opening night of the National Television Service.
Hello there, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and children. This emblem that you've just seen is tonight the symbol of a historic occasion, the opening of the National Television Service, which of course is your television service. And we hope that tonight, and in the weeks and years to come, that you're going to see and enjoy a lot more of it on ABN 2, ABN Channel 2. And my name is Michael Charlton, and I'm your host here tonight. I'm here to welcome you and show you around and let you meet a few of the people who are going to make this service tick. And we're going to show you something, too, of how we bring these people, the entertainers, to your homes, how we bring them to that small, bright screen in your living room that you're watching now, or perhaps as many of you are doing, looking through shop windows at television screens in the streets. This afternoon, when we were setting up equipment for the program that you're watching at present, we recorded what we saw. And here it is with a sporting commentator whose name you probably all know already from the Sound Broadcasting, Brian McCrenna. So it's over to you, Brian.
Right now, I'm looking down from the top of a tall building in King's Cross, and this is what's below me. There's our outside broadcasting van being moved into the site for tonight's opening program. As you can see, the men are working on it, and in fact, there's one of our cameras being carried out. This van is the nerve center of our program. To it lead the camera cables, and from it comes the signal that's directed up to the top of this building to the microwave link on the roof. And here's where I am beside the link. And I've got to use this sort of microphone because there's a lot of noise up here, mainly caused by the wind. And from this link at King's Cross, the signal, that's the picture, moves over the King's Cross roofs themselves, past the grading dock, across the harbour, past Woolloomooloo. There's Fort Denison with Mossman and the other suburbs in the background, and from there across to the bridge. And between those pylons at the northern end, the signal passes to our transmitter at Gore Hill. But while we're up here, I think we might have a look at the rest of the city. It's certainly a wonderful view. We leave the art gallery, move left past the beautiful botanical gardens, and there's St. Mary's Cathedral, and behind this the big offices and the stores of the city. And now you can see William Street running up the hill to Park Street, and from there to the heart of the city itself. And now back again, across the city, back to the bridge, and beyond it to our transmitter.
Traditional analog television was developed in the late 1930s and standardized in 1941. Color was added to the system in 1953. The signal that is conveyed over the air for traditional analog television is made up of three carriers: a visual carrier, a chroma carrier, and an aural carrier. You can see that the signal does not totally use the entire band and therefore is not totally efficient in the 6 megahertz channel. On the other hand, digital television was developed in the 1990s, conveys ones and zeros that represent the picture and the sound that are high quality. The signal that conveys this utilizes the channel very efficiently. As you can see, it uses up almost the entire 6 megahertz channel and can be conveyed at a lower transmitted power, providing the same coverage and service area as digital television.
Let's take a look at what's happening in your analog set right now, though, because that's what you're watching. Analog television has been around, as Gary said, for quite some time. What I'm showing here is a block diagram of what's inside your TV set. Please, you're not a TV repair person. Don't go inside your set to check this stuff. But what I have here is an antenna that's receiving all of the services that are within range. That antenna doesn't care if it's analog or digital. It's receiving all of those services and delivering them to the back of the television set. So at the back of the TV set, the first thing you come to is the tuner. The tuner's job is to select one of the services. That's what you do when you change channels. If you're selecting an analog channel, this television set knows what to do. It takes the video off of that channel, it delivers it to some circuitry that it uses to process. It lets you adjust the color, the chroma, those things that you do to improve the image quality, and then delivers it to the display so you can watch it. It does a similar process with the audio. It pulls the audio off, determines whether it's stereo left and right, sends it to some circuits to let you adjust the volume, amplifies it, and sends it to the speaker or speakers in your set. This lets you watch and listen to television. On February 17th of next year, analog services go away, but everything in this television set continues to work just fine. So if you have a VCR, a DVD player, those components that you're currently using now, those components continue to work just fine. The only thing that's changed is that there are no longer analog services being delivered to this antenna, and this tuner doesn't know what to do with the digital-only services that are available.
The broadcast of a television picture begins with a television camera. Inside most cameras, a prism system breaks light from a scene into the three primary colors of light: red, green, and blue. The colored light falls on image sensors called charge-coupled devices, or CCDs. When light falls on the CCD, it produces a pattern of electric charges. The CCD releases these charges line by line, producing an electric current called a video signal. The separate video signals are combined by an encoder into a single signal, which goes to a transmitter along with any sound or audio. The transmitter produces a television signal from the audio and video signals. This TV signal is broadcast by an antenna as an electromagnetic wave of an assigned frequency range or channel for that station. A television antenna picks up all broadcast signals that reach it. These signals produce electric current within the antenna. Inside the TV, the tuner selects the desired broadcast signal. Other parts of the receiver separate the audio signal and send it to a speaker system. The video signal is divided into three signals: one for red, one for blue, and one for green. The inside of the TV screen is coated with stripes or dots of red, green, and blue materials called phosphors. An electron gun for each color shoots an electron beam onto the screen, line by line, which causes the phosphors to glow. The beam's strength, which is controlled by the video signal, determines how brightly the phosphors glow. The patterns of light given off by the phosphors duplicate the image recorded by the camera, and the viewer sees a picture of the original scene.
In this video, I want to talk a little bit about a misunderstanding I commonly hear from my customers regarding getting an antenna for the new digital channels. One of the common things people ask me is, do I sell one of these new digital antennas or one of these new high-definition antennas? In fact, I've even heard them referred to as 4K antennas. And I say, no, sorry, I don't, because there is no such thing. And they don't realize the antenna they have on their house already might serve them just fine. Basically, what it boils down to is this. Either you need a UHF antenna, such as the one I'm holding in my hand here. This is referred to as a 4-bay bow tie antenna. Or you need an antenna that gets VHF and UHF. Oops, like this one right here. Now, I've tried a variety of different antennas, and some seem to work better than others, but basically it boils down to what frequencies your translators are being broadcast on in your particular part of town. As far as being able to point the antenna in the right direction, that's been interesting because it doesn't always work the way you'd expect it to. And there's a website a lot of people go to. There's actually several of them. I think one of them is called antennaweb.org, and then there's tvfool.com and a couple others. And I go there once in a while to try to find out how to point an antenna. And it can be helpful, but I find that around here it's not always that accurate because, like I said, I've got so many mountains around me that what works in one particular part of town may not work in another. This particular job was interesting because I was up on this gal's roof. I pointed the antenna in the direction I was supposed to according to where the translator was located, and I didn't pick anything up. And it turned out because this woman lived next to this huge mountain here, I actually had to point the antenna right at the mountain. I guess it was in a mountain behind her as well, so the transmitter itself was being blocked from reaching the antenna. So the best I could do is pick up a reflected signal off this humongous mountain here. And I think we had to put an amplifier on her antenna as well. You may not have to in all areas. Also, I found that because sometimes I'm surrounded by translators in different locations, I may have to use what's called an omnidirectional antenna. And that's something that will pick up signals in all directions at once. Unfortunately, they're not going to be as strong when you're using a omnidirectional antenna.
Hello, this is Chris Mitchell. I want to talk to you today about satellite antenna or satellite dish TV, dish network, or direct TV. Something interesting going on about these satellites versus other satellites. Notice, I want you to remember or recall the moon, we are told, is our largest satellite. It rises in the east and sets in the west, and we see other satellites that we are told that they can take photos, across the landscape of our supposed planet. And they can actually take pictures of license plates and that type of thing from these orbiting satellites. But when it comes to dish TV, the satellites do not move. They are fixed. In fact, I've knocked this dish off once, and I've had to adjust it. And with just one small turn of a wrench, just one little slight move, the dish, if the dish moves just a little bit, then I lose satellite signal. Now the dish is pointing here toward the southern sky, where we're told a satellite exists. And this satellite in the southern sky, again, it supposedly never moves. What they say is that it's in a geosynchronous orbit. That is, the Earth is rotating at 1,000 miles per hour, and they've launched this satellite in such a fashion that it also is spinning around the Earth at 1,000 miles per hour, and it never gets out of sync. And so because they're so precise with this satellite, we are able to get our satellite television 95 to 99% of the time. Now I also have on my home a DirecTV antenna, because I've had DirecTV as well at one point in time, and it also points in the southern sky. And notice this other antenna that I have here. This other antenna also picks up HD signals. This is for local HD broadcasting. I tried getting local broadcasting, and I was successful in doing it. I just had to have a decoder, and I could get HD channels within 70 miles that were broadcasted within 70 miles of my home. So the bottom line here is that the signals that we are getting are actually radio signals. You can go actually look this up. The television signals you're getting, whether they're coming from a supposed satellite, broadcast station, whatever it may be, these are actually radio signals. And so that's why I can pick these signals up with a dish or with this other type of antenna that you see here on my home. Now, it's my personal belief that the satellite story is a hoax. We all know that ham radio, you can bounce off the ionosphere, and these signals, radio signals, will go for miles. We have these communication towers that are all around us, and we know that we are receiving all of these communications, however we are receiving these communications. So the story about having a satellite in the southern sky that never moves is absolutely absurd. So I went to this website called How Stuff Works, and there I found an article that explained how the broadcast station broadcasts a signal, radio signal, to an orbiting satellite and then back to our homes. And they had a nice little illustration. The problem was the illustration didn't show why all of our dishes pointed south or pointed to a specific location. Why can they not give us an illustration that actually shows us how things are actually working? If you'll go to this website and look at their illustration, you'll see their illustration does not make any sense. And what's interesting, I found that they made this statement: if the Earth were perfectly flat, you could pick up broadcast TV thousands of miles from the source. Why even make a statement like this? I mean, it's almost like with them making this statement, they are telling us what is transpiring in our world. So I went to this website called dishpointer.com, and it shows you where all the satellites are pointing to. And I believe this is Galapagos Islands. So I'm not sure if there's a communications tower possibly here, but why do all the satellites point to Galapagos or the islands of Galapagos? If you go here and you type in any of the locations, and you can see here as I'm typing in different locations in the United States for the satellite pointer, they all point to the Galapagos Islands. Why are they all pointing to the same location? You might have to check me on this actually, see if that's what these islands are. I believe that's what these islands are. But I mean, every single one of these locations are pointing to the exact same location. And this seems to be telling us that these are indeed land-based systems. Just like a ham radio can send out radio signals.